Greetings, fellow gits, and welcome to my channel. I am the Gitman speaking, and in this episode, I was deciding to show you my 5 Stormboys that I just recently painted. Before you ask, I'm not going to continue in that orky voice because it's very difficult. But anyways, these are my 5. This is my 5-man mob of Stormboys that I have just recently painted within this month as well. And for those of you who are in the orc community on Facebook, you may recognize this guy right here, and that is because he is my entry for the Mork challenge. I think I said that correctly. And well, he was unfortunately not the first one to be painted. That actually goes to this guy right here. We may as well start off with him. Now, unfortunately, none of these have been converted. They're just standard Stormboys. But I actually think that they look pretty cool, despite not being converted. Now, for those of you who are possibly wondering, but my skin recipe for these boys is actually fairly simple, yet I still think is very effective. It is a base coat of the Citadel Wa Flesh, a wash of the Citadel Beal Tan Green, or just any green wash in general, and a first highlight of green skin, and the secondary highlight of Goblin Green. I quite like this skin recipe, and I find it not only very effective, but also fairly simple to actually, for someone who's just starting to paint skin, if it's going to be green, well, go ahead and use that skin recipe. I'm not gonna sue you in court or something. But also, the skin recipe on the Grot is almost kind of similar, but there's some tweaks to it. It's instead a base coat of Army Painter Army Green for the skin, a wash of Military Shader, a first highlight of Goblin Green, and a secondary highlight of Necrotic Flesh. I probably said that incorrectly, but I don't care. The lenses I used painting Glistening Blood because I didn't have any other colors to actually represent the lenses or the bits that would look like it was a light or made out of glass. So I just went ahead and went with Glistening Blood from Army War Painter. I know this is an effect, but it actually has a pretty nice coverage despite being an effect. So it definitely can work as a base for painting. The blue is the main color that I use is deep blue from Army War Painter. Now this the highlighting for the blue, it isn't all the same because there are actually, on some models, there are different shades of blue. Like on this guy right here, these two fins right here are actually a different shade compared to these two. That's because I used a mix of deep blue and crystal blue to make that color. And then I highlighted these with the same mixture. But before I did that, I also gave a wash of blue tone. I always give all my blues a wash of blue tone. Okay. You also, sorry to say this late into the video, but you will have to forgive some of the background noise. I am recording this downstairs. Anyways, back to the Stormboys. Now, this boy right here was actually pretty difficult to paint. He actually had a different head, but midway through painting it, I decided to snap it off because it was actually blocking some of the detail, so I just decided to remove it and replace it with this one. And, this head is actually not that bad. I quite like the bandana flapping in the wind. And also, I really actually like the chopper that he's wielding. The teeth on the chopper. I actually quite like the detail I did on that. Well, we already know who this guy. We already know this guy, but well, we'll go over him. Why not? Well, there isn't really much to say since, like I've said, these are all bog standard. But one thing I will say is that this is the first time I've actually attempted to make the Space Marine helmet on an orc model green. I mostly paint them in blue because any other colors that I have actually tried, they just simply don't match. Because the primary Space Marine armies that I fight are the Ultramarines and Imperial Fists. I haven't played against Ultramarines. I've only played against Imperial Fists. But the problem is, because of their bright yellow helmets, it doesn't really contrast very well with the paint scheme. So I just went ahead and went with just painting them blue. But then I decided to make a little twist on this guy, since he's for a challenge entry in the 40k community, to just go ahead and paint it in green. Because, well, I think it actually looks pretty good. The base, I used a texture, technical paint called Armageddon Dust. Gave it a wash of Agrax Earthshade, and then I just slapped on the glistening blood effect on the base. The little bit of debris on the base is just the desert part is just a base coat of desert yellow. This. And the stones, or the concrete, or building structure, are a base coat of Necromancer Cloak. And then it's a highlight of Uniform Gray and Ash Gray on the stones, or on the concrete. The fur, actually, not all of, actually, yes, all of them have some form of fur. It's mostly around the neck or at the feet. It's mostly around the neck. There is one guy that has it at the feet. But, that kind of, I decided to go ahead and try something else new, which was to highlight that fur, because I didn't want it to just be a plain base color, kind of like what I do with some of my models. So I went ahead and did a base coat of ash gray. I gave it a wash of light tone, I think. Yes, I think it's light tone. Then I gave it a highlight of skeleton bone. Or no. I gave it a highlight of mummy robes, and then a highlight of matte white. This guy, also, one more thing to say. When I first started painting these guys, I thought it was going to be a lot more of a challenge. But surprisingly, they weren't all that difficult to paint. I've actually been able to finish painting these guys way before I was able to finish painting all of my boys. Which is kind of crazy in my mind, because these guys look a little bit more busy compared to regular orc boys. This one is the most recent addition to this mob, or squad, but orcs say mob, so I'm just going to say mob. There's nothing really too special about him. They all, like I said, these are all bog standard, so there isn't too much really similar about them. But, well, there's not too much in the way of conversion, is what I meant to say. But, this guy was also kind of, in a similar state to this guy right here. But, the problem wasn't because, some of his pieces were blocking any detail. It was actually because the head that he had was kind of weird, and I didn't really like it. So I decided to remove that, and this was before I painted him. I actually chose to replace his head with this kind, and I think that this head is actually pretty cool, despite it having an ion sight. But actually, well, I take that back. The ion sight is actually pretty cool for a Stormboy. This model also had this Choppa instead of this Slugga, but I decided to replace that as well because I was really wanting to use this Slugga on something because it just looked really cool with the belt feeding into the gun. And you know what? I think I made the right choice. Plus, two of my Stormboys, this being one of them and this being the other, didn't actually have Stormboy weapons. This still doesn't have a Stormboy Slugga. He's just using a boy arm for his pistol. But yeah, I think they came out very well. I will definitely say these are the best looking models that I have painted so far. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching this video. Please subscribe for possibly more. I am starting to get better at recording and this whole YouTube thing. So, anyways, I'll see you gits in the future.